Hello, my name is Yar Ajakdeng on ITV, and on this episode of this month we shall be focusing on women, young girls and women of South Sudan who are doing great things in the political space, in business, in civil society, and also in all other aspects. As the International Women's Day comes on the 8th of March, we want to celebrate, recognize South Sudanese women, their struggles, their achievements also, and to anything that empower young girls and women of South Sudan. As the goal for the Women's Day is always to embrace equity, the South Sudanese are also joining the women of the world to embrace equity. And the theme for this year is innovation and technology, that is focusing on women in ICT and also innovation in terms of business and entrepreneurship. And on this episode, I have the founder of Go Girls Initiative. She will be telling us more about the organization and what they have done so far to empower young women and girls of South Sudan.
I'm Mina Yankinyika. I am the co-founder and mentorship director of Go Girls ICT Initiative. And I am also a network coordinator of a consortium that we are putting in place for South Sudanese-led and founded organizations, which is going to focus specifically on technology and innovation and how it cuts across. So I am also a member of board of the National Communications Authority, South Sudan.
All right, thank you so much for that. And now you mentioned something to do with innovation and technology.
Yeah.
And this year's International Women's Day is focusing mainly on innovation and technology to empower women and girls.
Very
and
true.
now let's go to the Go Girls Initiative ICT.
Right.
What is it about?
So Go Girls ICT Initiative, it's an initiative founded by a group of women who had interest in seeing more women come on board in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But our approach is how do you bring arts in to make science very interesting and adventurous for girls in schools.
Okay.
Yes.
So when was it founded?
Go Girls was founded in, we founded Go Girls on 19th December 2015.
Okay,
Yes.
19th December 2015.
Yes.
Okay, so who are the people that you mainly focus on when it comes to these related fields that you've mentioned?
So initially, when we started Go Girls, our target was the university students because the whole story began at the University of Juba College of Computer Science and Information Technology then, where I was working, my colleague was working, and interesting enough, the other colleague who joined us was also working at, I think then Busoga University, but she was teaching ICT.
Okay.
So we realized that the problems we had at our college, we had very few girls, were much less the same problems that she had at her university.
Okay.
So we're like, it was very important for us to put an initiative that encourages these girls to actually go out and present themselves in the field of technology and also explore the different possibilities so that they could work in the field.
Okay.
And from that, we realized actually it was beyond the classroom at the university. So that pushed us further to primary and secondary school.
All right.
Yes.
So now, do you have like a center where you actually teach these girls, or you go to the centers where girls are?
So when it comes to mentorship and trainings, the girls normally come to our space. I think you saw the whole inside. That's where we do most of the trainings.
Okay.
And also currently we have an innovation space. It's just across next to our office. So those are the different spaces. If you have anything relevant, this is where all these girls do the activities.
All right. Then
Yes.
talking about now the girls and that have benefited of this program, how many girls would you say or women have actually benefited in these ICT related things that you've been doing so far?
It's good that you mentioned women because women are also an integral part of what we do.
Okay.
But I think if I can roughly give an estimate, we've reached over 300
Okay.
women. And I think if men, there's also some percentage of men, but not exact on that.
Okay.
Yes.
So you
But
say 300, over
yeah.
300 have been
Yes.
empowered so far?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
now let's come to this. This is the innovation and technology. This
Very
year's theme
true.
for the International Women's Day is on innovation and technology.
Yes.
So what impact do you think is digital, the impact of digital on gender gap on women, and especially in all aspects, in economy, in social, and also in all other areas that women are involved in?
I think the impact is big. For example, when I just look at our context and I take a very simple man, for example, who's just in the market and selling, sometimes I start to ask myself, We have interesting fintech technologies, for example, like mGrush and mMomo. And sometimes I ask myself, how many women actually take advantage, for example, such existing tools or platforms that are available to actually save or keep their money or to actually transact. So you realize when we talk of digital gap, we also come back and look at the percentage of how many women are actually literate. But interesting enough, still with technology, literate or illiterate, we can still take advantage. But how many of us take such kind of advantage? Then there is also the context. Let's take a scenario of, for example, the UN jobs that most organizations currently, because of COVID, when COVID happened, everything was moved online. I normally have the question and the doubt of how many women do you think go through that process to actually apply for those jobs?
Yeah.
And how many women are actually technologically literate to explore these platforms easily without any challenges? Because when I look at technology, or even I as an individual, personally, there are some forms you go online and it requires like 10 or 20. So I'm taking an advantage of, I'm taking a scenario of someone maybe who is not so conversant like me, who understands all these different details of what's required or how it's supposed to be done. Do you think they will have the patience to always push through or not? So normally when we look at the digital gender divide, I normally look at it as beyond we the women who have actually gone to school, we the women who can actually use technologies, because we have a very huge percentage that they have all these devices, they have the phones, they have even access to internet. Currently almost everyone tries to make sure they are connected, but still, how much do women explore just just apart from the basics that I can make a phone call, apart from the basics that I can access the internet, how much do women explore? Is, I think, it's a question that we still need to find an answer to.
And also now, as we try to find an answer to that question, this comes back to actually maybe now trying to involve stakeholders, who are the people that will help these women. So what do you think, what role can stakeholders play to empower women with digital tools, young girls and women?
I think I can give an example of our initiative, Go Girls. Mentorship is very important because at the very beginning when we started as Go Girls, what should I say? When we went back to, I think, primary and secondary school, I remember there was one school that we went to, at Labara Basic, which was actually the closest to the university. And one of the questions that the head teacher then coined to us was, how can we trust you that this will work? And we were like, well, I guess it's a bet, take a gamble on us. And he was like, okay, you can start with the students with my school, the ones in primary and secondary school. And this is about like 7 years ago. And when I look at the journey of the 7 years, in almost every mentorship group that we've had, at least as Go Girls, there's a girl who ends up either doing computer science, engineering, or architectural, or one who goes for medicine. And I think for us, that's like the height of everything. Having this girl who is in secondary, who has no idea of what the future holds, and then she becomes part of our mentorship, and then she realizes actually this is something that she could do, it's not as hard as it looks at. So mentorship is very important. Then also working with communities, and I think this is also something that we do a lot. We realized communities where the girls that we mentor come from play a very key role. So as Go Girls, we push further to actually innovate with the communities where these girls come from. And I think one of the success stories that we had is still the hand sanitizer that we did with the local brewers. It was something that we least expected it could work out, but we had to take the gamble because we have this thing that if communities realize that science is part of them, it's just the knowledge that we get into classroom and we integrate what we have, it becomes very easy for these girls to also be part of. Then another thing I think we still need to do a lot when it comes to our policies. That's very, very, very important. I think we need to do a review of our policies. We need to find the gaps and see how we could close those gaps so that we become more inclusive of more women. Then I think finally is we need to do a lot with our education curriculum. The education curriculum was reviewed, but as an innovator, I still feel there are so many gaps that we need to fill when it comes to our education curriculum. We need more girls to understand science from their daily life, from their daily interactions. A student should find it so easy to translate what's in classroom back to the community or from where they come from. They should be able to do these experiments. When we look at the challenges of lack of infrastructures, we also see teachers also have their own challenges. Even schools have limited budgets. So what does that mean to us? So as innovators or as people in these spaces, it's time now for us to go back, look at what can we explore in our communities, and we bring it back to the classroom so that the young ones who are in primary school or in secondary school can easily relate and they start loving science. So the more women do science, the more they become technologically equipped, and the more they can maneuver actually in most of these spaces, even online.
Okay.
Yes.
And I was talking about that. What do you think are some of the challenges actually hindering women and girls on the digital space?
I think there are quite a lot. And one of them, if I can point it out, is I think the online harassment. So I know it's a very big challenge. Most women don't know how to maneuver online spaces, and that's, I think, it's a very huge setback. When they come to these spaces, they feel like, oh yeah, I can also express myself. But the online spaces, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of discrimination, there's a lot of harassment. Sometimes there's even a lot of woman-splaining, there's a lot of misogynistic words that can be thrown at you. So as a woman, if you're not capable of handling that, it becomes very threatening. And then we have also women who have still gone to school, but they find, for example, their accounts being hacked, and they get scared. They feel like, oh, then if it's this space is like that, how safe am I? But the good news is all these things can still be handled.
Okay.
Yes.
So how can they protect themselves now?
I think there are already so many platforms. There is a 211 check, which already does disinformation, misinformation, and mitigation of hate speech, which is a very good platform. Then we also have Safetycom, which actually, when you have a concern, your account you've been harassed online, as a woman, you can flag such kind of platforms, and you inform them, and they reach out to Meta or Facebook, and such accounts are flagged. So those are like some of the basic ways women could protect themselves. And also, I think we need to do more of cyber security trainings in relation to that for women to protect themselves in these digital spaces.
Okay.
So for the mentorship activities, we have, I think, very different categories. For the primary and secondary schools, we mostly focus on digital storytelling. And digital storytelling, in a way, we normally take advantage of the open source tool, which is Scratch, designed by MICT. At the back of it, it teaches you how to relate your different concepts in class, like mathematics, how you move objects from different angles, how you actually integrate voice, how you integrate sound, how you actually animate in simple terms. So we take the kids through that process of learning that tool. Then we normally challenge them, or we ask them, what are some of the challenges that you have in your communities and you think you could solve with this tool? So our approach mainly is to focus on how do we make these girls think beyond just them sitting in this room. How can they think of their communities? How can they think of the problems? Or how can they think of which kind of solutions they need? So it's very integral in what we do. Lately or recently, we introduced urban planning. So we looked at, okay, look at your country, what would you want to change? Because when you talk of girls being architects or engineers, they have to start envisioning things in their mind. So when you look at your environment, what can you use, for example, to build your envisioned city? So they go home, they look at the different objects, they brainstorm among themselves as girls, and then they come up with the different cities that they want.
Okay.
Or another interesting example we gave them was, I think it was coined by one of their students, that there is a lot of crime. Okay. So we're like, if there is a crime, what happens? How would you solve that? So the idea was for these girls to envision a crime scene. How are they going to solve that crime? So basically they look at, what do I have in my environment? How can I build a crime scene? how am I going to solve this crime scene? And for us at the back of our mind, we know there are like a number of activities that are involved. So in such kind of activities, we normally bring in, now that's where the university students come in. We bring in a university student who has knowledge or who is in that field. For example, if it's criminology, for example, what's involved in criminology? How do you solve such crimes? So the university students or the student who is already at the institution who is looking at this career sits with these girls and they actually build all this activity together. At the back of our mind, we just want to tell them, when you think of technology, even in crime, we need technology. There's digital forensics, we need information, we need data, and that's why database is coming. But you realize it all starts from a story, but at the end it's ending with what? With a technological aspect. So for the kids, that's mainly what we center. Then we have for the teachers, because I think teachers are also one of our really key stakeholders, that we do activities together, we research, we have all these conversations on the gaps the girls are having in school, on the gaps that are in communities, and whom should we work with in the communities. So they are also very central, really, when it comes to our research too. Yes.
So what would you recommend? What are some of your recommendations?
I think we need to, my huge recommendation is we need to step up, because I feel like there is more focus on technology and innovation when, for example, UN has taken the initiative to say we've designated this day for women and girls, you feel in relation to the sector. So you realize everyone comes out because it's just specifically focused on that day. Yet, this is something that is part of our life, and I feel like we need to have more of these conversations. We just don't need to wait for the special days to have them.
All right. Yes. Your message for the International Women's Day?
To all the South Sudanese girls and women in South Sudan, I think let me start with the girls. If we want to be part of the change that we want to see in this country, we have to love science. In primary, we have to learn science. I mean, love science in secondary. The same thing at the university, so it means we have to work hard. And as women, we have the capability and the power to always multitask. So the same energy that we put to all the things that we do at home, it should be the same energy that we bring to classrooms. Because if we are not part of this field, of this sector, we will not see the change that we require. So to be part of that change, we also have to be part of this field. And happy International Women's Day.